Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt.
With me today is life coach and LOA teacher Joel Elston.
This is your daily dose of happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today. Okay, now this is going to be, well, it's always fun. I mean, every time you and I talk, it's fun, right? Every time we do
absolutely.
Together, it's fun. This is going to be extra fun because this topic, first of all, you don't have any upfront idea of what the topic is. You didn't have a chance to look at it. So I'm going to be kind of catching you here.
Nice.
And this is not something we've talked about before. I don't think. I can't recall any time you and I have ever talked about this. So it's going to be interesting to see what your reaction is. But to give you kind of a setup of it, I have, as you know, I'm not much of a TV watcher. I don't really get into a whole lot of TV, but lately, partly because I'm single now, partly because of the way my schedule is, I allow myself a little time each night to just kind of melt in front of the tube for half an hour, maybe an hour. And I very quickly ran through all of the different stuff that you could watch because I don't like any of it.
Yes, same with me.
Through pretty quick, right?
Yes, there's not much out there.
Yeah. So trying new channels and new services and so forth. I finally got around to trying Gaia TV.
Yes, Joe Dispenza's series on that. Yes.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. And I found some really good stuff, including the Dispenza series, Rewired. That was very, very good. But as with any kind of channel, there's a mixture. It's a mixed bag of what you're going to get. And I've seen a few things on there that kind of cued in my mind. It's really interesting. We live in this world where where you and I are involved with what I would broadly call a law of attraction circle or a spirituality circle. And that circle, we've talked about this many times. That circle has a lot of different players in it. People who you mentioned very recently, I think, how you kind of decide to stay away from Facebook groups that talk about LOA because there are people who are very victim oriented, or they're trying to have arguments with you and all that kind of stuff. And it's because there are so many different viewpoints and so many different ideas and so forth. And not surprisingly, I see the same thing on the Gaia TV channel. A couple of things that I saw, though, have really caught my attention because I've heard of them before. I've heard reference to them, conversations with other people. I've been aware of some of the things that are talked about, but now I'm seeing some of it for the first time. And a comment that was made by one of those presenters caught my attention. This was a presenter, I can't remember his last name, Jason something or other, who is from an organization called the Light Society, I think it is. No, System, the Light System. And long story short, they're kind of like a private spirituality CIA. That's the best way I can think of to describe it.
Nice.
They're out there fighting the good fight, that kind of thing. But the reason I bring this up, not because of, what they're doing, hey, fine, whatever they want to do, it's okay. But he made a comment that was really interesting. His comment was, I am a very hard-headed realist. I'm a skeptic, and so I always investigate. I always look and I want to find the scientific evidence behind something, all that sort of thing. I said, oh, okay, well, that sounds interesting. That's kind of me. So I'd like to hear what he has to say. And then he did something really interesting, and made me do some self-reflection, asking myself, do I do the same thing? Because he proceeded to violate all of what he said. He literally skipped the science on like 3/4 of the things that he brought up. He literally skipped the skepticism. He went right to, well, you just believe this because I was like, what?
Wow.
What happened here? It's kind of like you're walking on something and somebody pulls the floor out from under you.
Yes.
And so I thought, well, that kind of makes an interesting topic because there are plenty of people in the broader spiritual realm that we're in who like to focus on stuff that I have no interest in it at all, largely because it's, from my perspective, mostly negative, mostly low vibration and so forth. And yet they're fascinated by it, including some people that I care about. They're very close to me. So I think that's what I was paying attention to. I was asking myself, okay, so what is it that they're finding to be of such great value in these presentations? And are they experiencing the same kind of reaction that I had, where I had this guy saying, yeah, I'm going to be very factual and so forth. And then he lied. He just didn't do it. and how do they respond to that? That's the kind of thing that I was thinking about here. So that's why I wanted to talk about organizations like that and how do we go about interacting with them or choosing not to interact with them? How do we go about staying vibrationally true to ourselves while experiencing what it is that they're sharing. Because I really do believe deep down in the heart of hearts, they are trying to help others. They are
I
trying
agree.
of service to others.
I have a similar track, and see if this matches with what
Okay.
you're thinking. So, as you know, I'm actively involved in the legalization of psilocybin for therapeutic use. Okay.
Yes.
So I know people all over the country. I'm coordinating. I'm working with legislatures in various states, and I've run across like 5 or 6 gurus. They're they claim to be, but as you get to know them, the gurus, they've gotten off task. They've gotten off mission. They're more, some of them, and not all of them, some of them, I do believe everyone starts with a good agenda.
Mm-hmm.
And then sometimes the ego takes over.
Sure.
Or like one guy was telling me, I don't want to give you the name of my contact. And I go, okay, well, I'm good with that. And I go, but why not? I'm just wondering. Yeah, I'm good with it. But is there a reason? He goes, well, I don't want you to be the one to convince him to talk.
Oh.
And I said, well, would it matter who? I wouldn't care if you got him to talk. I said, so, and this is a doctor that won't return his call. He said, he said, I have a reputation for being, a bulldog, and there's some people are scared to talk to me. But if you talk to him, he may talk to you. And I spent a lot of energy on this. And I'm like, oh, okay. So you're worried about the credit for it. I said, what if I gave you the credit for the introduction? Because I have one mission, and that's to help people with this. And I don't care if my name ever gets mentioned. I truly don't. You know me well enough. I don't.
I believe you.
Yeah. And so, but I'm running across a lot of that. And sometimes they'll get like off mission, or like for me, psilocybin is really good for people with extreme trauma and people with addiction and people with anxiety. There's a lot of things it's really good for.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also supporting psychedelic arguments for like ketamine and some of these other things. I'm like, or LSD. And I'm like, look, I'm sticking with psilocybin, and it makes the most sense. It's the most studied. And ketamine has a whole different concept. I don't want to battle the ketamine people. I don't want to battle the pot people. But psilocybin is the one that's seemingly the most effective for what my mission is.
Mm-hmm.
But yet there's a lot of people that lead you in with something, and then they try to pull you off to something else. They're doing the opposite. And so I hear it. And I'm just running across a lot of people with their own agenda, and the longer they're into it, sometimes the battle gets them off course. And so I do believe that every single person had a great reason to start this, and were sincere, and they still are, but they have gotten off track. And when somebody claims to listen to scientific evidence and then turns around and literally does the opposite, you're going, where did that go? And how does this person not realize they're losing credibility when they say that?
Yeah.
And again, none of this affects me, except if we're trying, and my argument with the people that I've been talking to is we have too much infighting in the psilocybin world. There's some people that want to make it totally legal. There's some people that want to make it, decriminalized. There's a difference. Some people want to make it only therapeutic. And I'm simply advocating for therapeutic use and research until we have further data. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Because to me, it's the lowest barrier to entry. But yet, in some state, I forget which one, they were writing the bill, and they insisted on making, with the therapeutic language, decriminalizing it as well.
Mm-hmm.
And it lost because of the decriminalization. Everybody was on board with therapeutic. They said, get us another bill without the decriminalization, and we're going to sign this thing. Well, the session ended, so we got another year before that happens.
Yeah.
And I see that a lot, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Another example of what I was seeing pretty much parallels what you're talking about. The same gentleman I'm speaking of that I spoke about before. Not only was he ignoring his own rules about always looking to the scientific evidence, and he was quite clearly and quite deliberately telling you when he was going to just skip doing scientific evidence. So I have to give him credit for that. But he also made a really interesting claim at one point. He says, I have nothing to gain off of this. I have no money to make on this. And what's really odd about it is that this he was referring to was this Light Society, which he actually isn't even a member of. He's like a spokesman for them, according to him, but he's not an actual member of them. They almost sound like the I can't think what they're called. Masons, the Masons. It's almost like the Freemasons. You have to he has to join and rise up the ranks and all that kind of thing. And he apparently has not gotten that far into it, but he's become their spokesman. And his statement was literally true, as far as I know. He doesn't actually make any money off of what they do. But what he does do is he makes these videos about what they do, and he makes tons of money off of those.
Right.
It's like, well, wait, are we being like a little bit misleading here?
Yeah, but his, and when you start doing that, I that's the stuff that starts when people get in this. I'm not making any money off this, but I'm making a boatload. Like, what is the guy? Joel Osteen. I know. Right. He will proudly state he takes no salary for his role as a preacher.
Yes,
he does it.
Multi-million-dollar industry he's got there.
Yeah. However, he makes $50 million a year on his books.
Yeah, right.
And all the other stuff. It's like, but he doesn't. I take no salary for this, and I'm making. And now I'm on board if he wants to make $50 million.
Sure. Oh yeah, I have no objection to that.
But don't sort of lead us to believe that you're wearing your $19,000 suit on TV every Sunday, and you're doing this out of the goodness of your heart. Well,
it probably is out of the goodness of his heart, just not exclusively.
But yeah, like he's doing it for free. I love what I do, but I make no bones about it. I make a lot of money, and I enjoy my career. I do. Right. I also do a lot of free stuff, but I'm getting into all that. I don't hide that I'm successful. And
there's no need to. That's the thing that's so interesting about it. Why do they feel the need to hide? Why is that important? I don't get that.
That's what I don't get.
Yeah. All right. Well, it's nice to know we're on the same page on that one. We both don't get it.
But
we're both confused.
But it is an interesting thing that when things happen, when people rally to a cause, and they everybody starts off in the right direction, and then things happen, and then you start turning people off and infighting, and people worrying about credit and who's getting the credit for this, or this isn't the vision I have, and then it all falls apart. And that takes place politically, that takes place in businesses. It's just, you lose focus of where you're at, and that's an amazing thing. So it's very frustrating, as you're saying.
Now, there's also a second piece that comes along with it, and this is the one that I think actually concerns me more than the first one. Is just like, well, come on, there's no need to be a hypocrite or even sound like a hypocrite. Right. Don't do that. But the second one is more concerning, because what these people from these variety of different organizations and viewpoints are genuinely doing is they're doing what marketers tell us to do. They're pushing the hot buttons, the emotional hot buttons. This terrible thing is happening. That terrible thing is happening. This organization is rising up in defense of that terrible thing or against that terrible thing or whatever. And it gets to the point where the message is just chock full of terrible things.
Sure.
So at some point, I asked myself, okay, well, where do we end up focusing on the stuff that we like instead? And that's the part that seems to be missing. So I raised the question, well, shouldn't we be aware of this at least? I mean, it's fine that people are doing their best to get information out there, because that's what their defense normally is. I'm trying to get the information out there. That's great. But at some point, don't you have to accept some responsibility for how you're transmitting it?
I would think so.
I would think.
Well, but the problem is, and we have had this discussion with a different flavor. We have talked about this in the sort of in politics, and how the negative sells. You get the most attention by the negative. The attention, unfortunately, it goes that way. And so right. When you get into this, I don't really, as you know, follow much politics, and I do have a confession to make. I watched the first 45 seconds of the debate the other night before I realized
to tell the tale. Congratulations!
Yeah, I quickly realized why I shouldn't be watching it. and decided, man, that can really mess you up pretty quick, because it was not a good thing to watch, and for me at least. And so but again, when you're always attacking on the negative, or you're always this person is going to do this, or the reason this is not working is because this is going to fall apart, or here's what's going to happen. One of the concepts that gets lost when somebody's trying to prove a point, like I heard somebody on the radio talking the other day about climate change and the increase of the all that, and he was really good, but he made a statement. Of course, my brain starts listening to this, and I don't know if he misspoke or what, but he goes, the temperature is increasing 1.7% every year. And I'm like, no, it's not. No, it's not. It's going. I've seen that it is going up. I'm not in any way.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
I'm not. But when you make a ridiculous statement, because it's going to be like a low of 3,000 in a few years, if we do
Right.
that. So yeah, it's not it. But yet and nobody ever stops that, or the idea that the like sex trafficking is a horrible, evil thing, and there's nobody in the world is going to defend sex trafficking, but you'll hear the numbers and you're going, okay, well, the biggest threat of sexual abuse to our children, sex trafficking is horrible, but the uncles and the priests and the other people that they do 1,000 times more likely to get abused by one of those persons to be sex trafficked. Doesn't mean I'm not against, I'm not pro sex trafficking. I'm simply, where are we looking at? It's like this diversion kind of concept. And if people wants to make their point, it's not that that's not a relevant point. I'm a recovering compulsive gambler, and I share that openly. The percentages of compulsive gamblers, I was always amazed at this. They estimated between 5 and 10% of the population is compulsive gamblers. I'm like, that's not even remotely true. I did the math. It's not true. It's very rare. That may have played alcohol or other drugs, but the actual is less than 1% of the people, significantly less than 1%, develop a gambling problem. Now, does that make gambling any better? No. My gambling addiction almost cost me my life. So it's certainly bad, but I don't need to inflate the numbers and scare people unrealistically by doing that. I even less than 1% of the people in the United States, still a lot of people, and it really affects. But yet we have this a thing. I'm an advocate for foster care,
right?
And I heard a number one day. They said there's 1.6 million children in foster care that are available for adoption. That's not remotely true. There's 405,000 children in foster care. Still a lot. But it's like somebody feels there's we need to make it more juiced up. But then when you get caught saying it, then everybody sort of dismisses it as rhetoric anyway.
Right. Yes. I mean, you made brought up the example about sex trafficking, which I totally agree is, who's going to say that's a good thing? Nobody's going to say it's a good thing. But in that same that same idea on the Gaia channel, there was a presenter who was talking about sex trafficking. And the context was a discussion about aliens living among us. That was the premise of it. And one of the I'm still not quite sure where the aliens among us fit into this, but I mentioned that just to give you some context. So there we are. We got the context out there. But one of the things that they said was, the number of people who are involved in the sex trafficking, the number of children who are caught up in sex trafficking is in the tens of millions, and it would terrify you. But that wasn't good enough. They wanted to take it one step further. So they said, why is it that their parents or their uncles or aunts or whatever don't object? And the reason they say is because there's a whole society of them who are cloned. So these are cloned children who are being trafficked and abused. And all I could think was, first of all, why are we just kind of ignoring the ones who are not cloned for whatever reason? Why are we just skipping that part of it? And now why do we have to put this layer on top of it that nobody can really do anything about except to get more fearful about it? I mean, I don't really see a value in it other than just make it even worse and optimize it, to use the term you
and using that one example. I mean, the idea, and I'm open to general concepts, but to throw the cloning in, to say it's all what happens is everybody then dismisses the whole concept because that dude's crazy. So they're going to dismiss the whole concept. Now there are children and adults that are being sex trafficked that desperately need support and help, and particularly from third world countries, and they're brought over, they're trafficked, for many things. Kids are taken to do free labor. They're abused. There's a lot of things that happen. Horrible. But when we alert to the point that we're claiming that a lot of these kids are cloned now. This guy has actually hurt the concept. He's hurt the help, because there's people that are going, oh my gosh, you tune things out. Every time you hear, if a plane crashes, we'll have breaking news. They'll stop the channel. There's going to be 94 people died in a plane crash, blah, blah, whatever that number is. Right. Every day in Virginia, at least 90 people die in car wrecks in just Virginia.
Yeah.
If it does make the local news, it's brief, maybe in the, but most of them don't make the news. That's because right. There's just so much of it. It does, but yet we look at spectacular. We look at, there's a lot of things that happen. It's just the way we do things, and it's the idea that somehow that a plane crashing is tragic, and it is. There's no argument it's tragic, but so the same number of people died in one state, in the same month that happened, but we don't acknowledge that.
Yeah.
And so it's just we live in a world of sound bites and attention, and most of this is driven, I believe, by there's several factors, but negative wins. Negative has become in politics. Negative clearly wins. I really believe, most people voting now are voting against a person instead of for a person.
Oh, easily.
Yeah. And so in one question, no matter, and this even shuts up most of the people, because I don't get on any side of the politics. I have my opinions, of course, but I'll just simply say, of our two current presidential candidates. So out of the 350 million people in our country, these are our best two. These are our sharpest, our brightest, our most intelligent, the ones that are getting things done. You're telling me we're there?
That's what most people are saying.
Yeah, and I think that's what most people are thinking. As you're watching this, you're going, wow, I think it should be election 2024. Do you prefer liver cancer or pancreas cancer? Which one's your choice?
That's pretty much it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And by the way, the surveys clearly show that too. The political studies that are done, political surveys show something like 2/3 of the population does not like the choice for 2024. No. They want another candidate. They want another option.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's, and it's not hard to predict that. I mean, we're barely into this election cycle, and already the negativity is off the charts.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And our best and our brightest, who wants that scrutiny? Who wants that?
Yeah, who would want the job?
Yeah, who wants the job? If somebody said, I'm going to run you, and back you hundreds of millions of dollars, we'll get you out there. I don't want the job. I don't want the job. It's just, it's become something that it's disruptive. It'll ruin your life. If you look at the pictures when they're inaugurated and then 4 years later.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. President Obama looked like he aged 30 years in office.
He did. Yeah. It was only 8.
It was only 8. And a lot, there's very dramatic changes, a lot of stress, it's a thankless job. 50% of the country automatically despises you, no matter what you do, no matter how good you are. 50% of the people automatically dislike you.
So you're basically setting yourself up to be low vibe for the next 48 years.
Yes. And so within that, the way things are done nowadays, and this isn't fatal. This isn't something that we can't look at, and not everybody does that. I definitely live in a different world than that. That's not how I view all of this, but there's certainly people that do, and it's an amazing. And I also had Gaia TV for a while. I loved it, and then I ran out of content pretty quick.
I've noticed the same thing. Yes.
Yeah. It was great because that initial thing, and then I started looking deeper, and I'm like, yeah. And so I had it like only 2 months.
Yeah, that sounds. I'm wondering if I'm going to make it to month 2, to be honest.
Yeah, it's fantastic. But it also another thing, you can find a lot of their content on YouTube for free.
Yes.
Yeah, and I'm not, and I would support them. It's not that I'm not trying to get away for free, but it's just this idea that, okay, I like Joe DePinta stuff. It's fantastic. There's a few other guys on there that I really like.
Yeah.
And
there is some good stuff.
Yeah, really good stuff. But it's for me, it was about a month's worth of stuff, and then the content was, there was some stuff that I wasn't. No disrespect to anybody else's beliefs. We talked about just different things. I sometimes the alien stuff gets way out there for me and all that, and I'm not opposed to the concepts, of course, but I just don't, that's not my line of stuff right now. I don't,
Yeah. And well, some of it is interesting enough to me that I'm willing to listen to it. I think a lot of it has to do with what the attitude of the presenter is.
Yes.
That's what I'm noticing. I think it's one of the reasons I brought up this topic today, because the attitude of that presenter was, he's trying to be very factual, but he ends up going negative.
Yes.
He's trying to be scientific, but he ends up going anti-scientific. And that really rubs me the wrong way. Like I lost interest. I couldn't even watch the rest of his presentation. I mean, I actually saw probably 70% of it, but I just couldn't finish it because I didn't want to be on that vibrational level. I didn't enjoy it. There was nothing to be gained. There was no value I was getting out of it. All I was doing was sinking further and further into my chair and saying, why am I paying attention to this stupid thing? At some point, you have to draw the line,
Well, and that's exactly how you talked about in the beginning. I belong to all the law of attraction groups. All that was fantastic. And for at first, and then I realized, oh my gosh, it's a war in here. And if I commented, I've had some very negative comments one time. I basically was, just trying to be supportive, and somebody obviously took what I wrong. And I forget even the comment, but said, "Do you even know what you're talking about? Do you even understand the law of attraction?" And I'm like, apparently not your version. Was my answer, but yeah, but and I laughed because it was just, and it wasn't against anybody. It just wasn't my vibrational level I needed to be at. Yes. Most of that is introductory stuff, and most of the people coming in are very, new to it, and they're still a lot of times stuck in victimhood and argument, all that, and not quite getting it. But I try to make sure my vibrational level is matching a presenter, for example. That's why I love Joe DePinta stuff. I love where he comes from.
Right.
That's big. His stuff is gigantic. I love his stuff and his thoughts, and he backs it up with a lot of science, and he backs it up with a lot of theory, and he's really good at distinguishing between the two.
Yep. I picked up a lot of stuff from him that I hadn't even heard before. I mean, some of the stuff that was in that Rewired series was new. Now I haven't consumed all of his content before. I've consumed some of it. So it's not terribly surprising that there were some new things in there, but nevertheless, there were new things, and I love them. That's great.
Yeah, and Bruce Lipton is a scientist. You familiar with him? Biology of Belief.
Biology of Belief, right?
Yeah, he's fantastic. So there's some guys out there that really step it up.
Yeah.
And you like that. And, what we were talking on the show about a guy, we couldn't remember his name, and I sent it to you after the show, Joe Vitale or Vitale.
Oh, I remember Joe, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So Joe he's a law of attraction guru. He always came across as a little bit of a con artist to me, but
because he is.
Because he is. So, but his content isn't wrong. It's just, what's funny, and I realize this, he advocates for, all you need to do is visualize it, and then it happens.
Right.
You don't need to work hard. Your mindset's everything. He may be the hardest working man. I get content. If you ever subscribe to one of his anything, you get 20 emails a day with various promotions and certifications, and he's one of the hardest working guys I've ever seen. And I have no problem. I like hard work. I'm an action oriented law of attraction guy. I believe that. But the fact he's espousing no action, and it happens, and then yet he literally, I don't think the guy rests. I mean, he's on every podcast that will talk to him. Again, it's not bad content, but it's not. It doesn't feel authentic because it's not what he does.
Right. Right. There is a lot to be said for internal consistency. I think that's
Yes.
what we're really driving at here.
Yes, and that's me. And I've told you with multiple times my version of the law of attraction is specific to the stuff I've gathered. I am not in any way claiming it's the only way it works. It works for me. I believe in mindset. I believe in using manifestation techniques. And I also believe getting off your ass and getting to work is how it works. I really believe that. Yeah. So action with the law of attraction empowers the action to a level that I believe that. I have never had somebody walk up and say, "Here's $1 million, Joel." That it just didn't happen. Wish it would, but but I can go out and make $1 million. I can do that, but I've never had anybody, and I believe $1 million is not a lot of money in my mindset anymore. I can go get that, but nobody's coming to the door with $1 million check because and maybe it is because I don't believe it'll happen. But empowered action using the law of attraction, it energizes action. Like attracts like. It energizes the process, and you run. I believe that.
Mm-hmm.
And
what that does for me, what that says to me, is what we've known all along, and we talked about it on a number of different occasions in a number of different ways, and that is develop yourself.
Yeah. Because
as you're developing yourself, what you're really doing is you're developing not only your internal connection, which of course is all important, but you're also developing, I guess I'll call it your protection suit.
Yes.
Because the more that you learn, the more difficult it is for someone to pull the wool over your eyes.
Yes.
The more difficult it is for somebody to be hypocritical and you don't notice it. And so you become more discerning. You become more selective about which content you're going to accept, which content you're going to reject. To me, that's the biggest value of all of this work that we do on ourselves. We learn how to be more discerning. We learn how to be more selective about what we're going to accept into our lives, what we're going to say, no thanks. Nice, but no thanks.
Well, and if you were, and you and I have very similar beliefs. We sort of have grown together with this, and we have some slight variations on some minor issues.
Oh, yeah.
But it doesn't.
Be fun otherwise.
Yeah, but and you're entitled to be wrong all the time. I mean, I'm good with that.
Yeah, you're entitled to like football all the time. That's
yeah. Oh, well, let's don't go down there. So, so anyway. Only 8 weeks, by the way, to football.
I understand that.
Yeah. So, but within that, so I've had people challenge me just on the general concepts of the law of attraction or the way I practice it. Mm-hmm. And I like, how do I prove that it works? It's like, I have my life to present. Here's what happened. Here's the chain of events.
Right.
I have complete belief that the law of attraction is the fundamental change that I made. Understanding the law of attraction is what got me here. I believe that there's not a moment of my life that goes by that I don't believe that's true.
I know that.
And the reason that it continues to work is because I believe it on that level. There's no evidence you could show me that would get me off my belief. Now, let's say hypothetically, I'm totally wrong. It still works because look at my life. In my perspective, that's how it goes. Yeah. I'm incredibly healthy. I look at my financial situation is secure. I'm a little shaky on relationships on an occasion, but that's sort of what I've always done. So yeah, still working on that one in a big way. But it is this way for me to express that. That's why I do the show every week. You and I mean, we do split the large amount of revenue that comes in.
This is true, yeah.
Yeah.
Don't by the way, all in one place.
by the way, I've never gotten a payment, Walt. Just let you know. But it's building, I'm sure. But regardless of all that,
I like to think of it as virtual credit, if you understand.
Virtual credit, yeah. But I love doing this. It's part of my law of attraction practice to do this. I feel that this helps me. Every week, when we first started doing it, I loved doing it because it was just a perfect time in my life and your life.
Yeah.
It was basically me and you talking with nobody around for a long time.
Yeah, it was a shock when somebody showed up. Actually,
yeah. It's like, oh, there's a person listening. Yeah. But where we're at today, and the beauty of this is, I believe in allowing, I believe in developing your own stuff, but there's forces at play that are the opposite of where we're at. And they work, because I also want to present the case that the law of attraction is in play with all the negativity. It's just the other side of it. It's
right.
The law of attraction is still working. It's just going for the other direction. And energy, negative energy seems more powerful. And the reason it seems more powerful is it's practiced so much, and so many people, when you truly get to that understanding of the, gratitude and positive thought, and whether it is really the most powerful way to live. But a lot of people have a hard time breaking away from that subconscious programming that we talk about often. Of the biology predisposes us to negative thinking. It's protective, to anticipating the worst. It appears to be protective. It's not actually, but it appears to be protective. What's the worst case scenario? How many times do people ask that question?
Right.
What's the best case scenario?
Yeah, we don't get that question very often.
Yeah, and I always interrupt thoughts. What's the best thing that can come out of this? And then that's what I'm going to expect. Yeah,
exactly. It's a fascinating thing, though, like you were saying, that we do have this very strong orientation toward the negative. I personally am very much, I find myself moving very much toward the idea of habit. I mean, there are a lot of different ways we've broken this down, a lot of different ways that we've explained why it is that we're so negatively focused as a culture, as a society, as a race. But I keep looking at habit. I keep looking at the way that the subconscious mind functions, and how it basically sets us up, or perhaps I should say we set ourselves up to always have the same expectation through habit. And the habit is neurological. It's built into our nervous system. So it's kind of like we set the habit, we keep building the habit, then we build it some more, then we build it some more, then we build it some more, and then we wonder why we have it.
Yes. But it goes both directions. There's intentional habit too.
That's right.
Where was I? I'm going to ask a question. It's not a trick question. Where was I at 9 o'clock this morning?
I have no idea.
Where am I at every morning at 9 o'clock?
I'm guessing your office, but
the gym.
Oh, the gym. Oh, okay. All
right. Every day I'm in the gym.
I always see posts from you like 6 a.m. So I figure, well, you must be doing the gym now.
Yeah. I mean, it might be 6 a.m. today, but it's every day it's programmed. I go to the gym. There's no negotiation. There's no thought of like, should I work out today? None of that takes place. It is part of my functioning. I didn't debate if I needed to pee this morning when I got up, and I don't debate if I go to the gym.
You don't debate over that, really?
I do not. And so it has become it can become a habit. Habits can serve you or they can defeat you. It's like anything else. There's two sides to that. The book Atomic Habit talks about how to develop incremental changes, all that stuff. Habits have they can be very, very helpful to you when you learn how to leverage them to your advantage. They can also be incredibly destructive with habitual mindset, negative thinking, and the habit of negative thinking. Trying to break. I was consulting with this family today. They have a family business, and they wanted to talk about all of the financials and the upcoming stuff. And you have the co-owners, the mom and dad of this family, that have incredibly negative thinking. They're very believing everything's falling apart every 8 seconds. And so, yeah, seriously, it is just bizarre to let, this happens or this happens. It's a very viable business, but they literally have a meltdown every day over something.
Sounds like my next door neighbor, actually. But that's
really? Okay. So what we did was, I was talking, and they kept wanting to talk about these details, and I said, the what's going to have to happen. I said, I'm not going to be a good fit for you, because everything's falling apart at least once a day is the problem. Your mindset's the problem. Your business plan is well done. Whoever wrote this for you, brilliant. I love that. The financials look great. The implementation, you need to work on some cost cutting over here, but that part's fine. But I want to work on your mindset and try to get you to realize you're sabotaging it using these. And the dad is thinking, he basically said, well, you're crazy. And I go, well, that's not really the point today. Which I said, of course I am. But as far, I said, I've done this a lot, and we got to work on your mindset, because you're anticipating the negative and you're actually inviting it. If there's a crisis every day, so every day you're waiting for the crisis to happen. And then if it doesn't happen, you create one.
Yeah.
And that's they have the habit of crisis thinking. I told them that. And it's, the kids get it. The kids understand it. They're like, yes, when I say kids, they're still, 20s and 30s. They're like, that's where we have to change, because they all hate going to work because mom or dad's going to be yelling and screaming about some problem today. The website was down one day at this particular business, and, the dad checked it and he goes, we probably lost $20,000 today. And, there's no evidence to that. And so he spending all this time researching, what happened, and I'm like, wouldn't your first call be to get the website up? I mean, I would get
that's
more.
An idea.
Yeah. I mean, let's start with that.
Radical, but
Yeah. And after the review, and I held him to this after he told me that, and we researched it, we got the information. You know how much money they lost that day? None. Statistically, I mean, they were on average for the day. So whatever snapshot of time was down, I'm not saying they didn't lose a sale or two, but it wasn't down long. And it was this idea that everything's falling apart every day is why these people have no shot of success. I said, I would sell the company. It's just, unless you're going to change that, sell the company.
In my view, they're actually very fortunate. The reason I say that is they believed that they were going to lose $20,000 that day. They actually lost zero. And the reason I say they're fortunate is because they apparently give no attention to the $20,000 a day they make. I mean, the only way you're going to lose $20,000 in a day is if you're making $20,000 in a day on a regular basis.
Of course.
So that means the other 6 days of the week, they made 6 times $20,000, $120,000. Why the heck are they focusing on a $20,000 loss that isn't there when they could be focusing on a $120,000 gain that is there?
Yes.
Like what?
And that
did I miss something here? I mean,
something? But how many people do that? How many people look at what's wrong in their life? What's wrong with their body? What's wrong with their environment? What's wrong with me? What's wrong? Versus what is right? Ask the question every day. What's going right? That is law of attraction 101. Focus on what's right. Focus on the abundance, and it just can't help but work when you get to that place. But most people have the hardest time not looking at, what is wrong now. I have a client that he has this tendency to there's always a crisis. So his plumbing was stopped up. So the guy took 2 days to fix it. So he was griping and complaining that the plumbing was broke. This is terrible, unacceptable. So the plumbing gets fixed. Then it wasn't ever a moment of, oh, thank goodness the plumbing's fixed. The air conditioning's not working optimally. I need this. And it's like, well, it's 101 degrees outside. So it's not the air condition. It's just, it's hot out there. Well, that's isn't acceptable. Then he realized the air conditioning is working. So it turned to but there's never a moment of like, life is good for you. And he may have one of the saddest lives I've ever seen. It isn't a money issue. It is just, he's never ever happy, ever.
Yeah. And to be perfectly honest, our society does tend to feed that.
Of course.
I mean, all the time on a regular basis. And people are habituated to it. I'll give you an example actually from the gardening business. I have an employee who I've given her a laptop to use, a used one. It's a Mac, but it's a used Mac. So we're not talking about the high-end $1,000, $1,500 machines. We're talking about one that's quite a bit older. I think I spent $200 on it. It was not a big investment, and she lost it at one point, and she was all upset, and she was so embarrassed. And I mean, I understand, but she was so worried that I was going to be mad at her and so forth. And mad was like the last thing that was on my mind was to be mad at her, because she produces so much value for me in the business. I mean, for me, the big loss would be if I lost her, not if she lost the Mac,
Right.
And she was in shock kind of that I wasn't getting upset. I mean, she was grateful. She was appreciative, but she was kind of in shock that I was just treating it like it wasn't that big of a deal. That is indicative to me of just how much negativity she gets from society as a whole. And it's
Well-
not just her. There are reams of people who get massive amounts of negativity on a regular basis, so that when something goes well, they can't quite believe it.
Well, that's the thing, and they are scanning. They eventually get where you're scanning for the negative, and the reality is, just like you're saying, you weren't upset. It's a $200 Mac, even if it's a $1,000 Mac. I mean, the fact that she does so well for you. I mean, you wouldn't be happy, but at the end of the day, it is what really matters. But yet, that is the mindset. It is. Scanning the horizon for what's wrong, scanning, let's take the temperature of the negativity, and then you do that. It's just, and I feel sorry for people that haven't quite figured this out. It's like,
and by the way, the Mac showed up the next day. I just want to throw that in there.
Yeah,
It was never actually lost.
Right?
It was just temporarily missing.
Yeah, but it's this the awfulizing term that I use a lot, taking every scenario and making the most awful conclusion possible, and. When you wake up and you realize, and this is something, I don't leave the house until I adjust my mindset to one of abundance. And I tell you, I'm very honest with you. I don't wake up every day. Oh, yay. I mean, there's days I'll wake up going, like the other day I woke up, my shoulder was killing me. I have shoulder issues from all the weightlifting all the years. And so what I did was I took myself to a place where you're able to come on in, Justin. Okay. Justin, my son, Justin just walked in. So, but I took myself to a place where at my age, I'm in the gym every day. I'm really strong. I went over what's right. So yes, sore shoulders are true, but it doesn't impede anything I have going on. I can ice them down. I take turmeric for an anti-inflammatory. I have tools I can use for that. I stretch them out real well. I have a lot of things going right for me. And I remind myself. So I override any perception of negativity or loss. I logged on to one of my accounts the other day, and I know how much money is there. It's a significant amount of money. Well, it showed a zero balance. Well, that's not true. Now, I logged on at 5 a.m., so there's nobody to call. So I can either focus on there's a gigantic sum of money missing, or and it showed no transaction, so it was just zero.
Right. Yeah. Or
they're redoing their website or something went wrong. So I can either focus on it. I sort of forgot about it. About noon, we get the email. If you checked your balances already, everything's fine. There's no money lost, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I forgot. So, but there was a time when that could ruin my whole morning.
Yeah, sure. Oh, yeah.
What happened?
That happens regularly for a lot of people.
Yeah. And it's like, and I even had the scenario laughingly said, yeah, if that is gone, there's still plenty more. I got other accounts. I mean, it's just, it wasn't that time where everything fell apart, and that's the beauty of understanding all of this, but also societal, we're getting more and more negative. It feels like it's winning. And I always, I'd want to blame just social media or the networks or whatever, but it's a formula. It's a process. The television shows are called programming for a reason. We've talked about that. They know how to get you. We know additives to add to food that make it more addictive to you. So they add those. They want you to increase that. It's very addictive. We want to sell more food. Same thing with all that. What's going to make this? There's psychologists that work for the network. There's psychologists that work for casinos in Las Vegas on how to entice you to gamble more money.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, and they get paid well for it, by the way.
They get paid really well. I have a couple of guys friends that do it.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just, it's just, little simple things, where to place this table, where the temperature to keep it at, the proximity of bathrooms, you want to have that. So, you want to make it as simple as possible. All that matters. The comfort of the chair, you want people leaning back a little bit. If you don't want them leaning too forward, they design all of that. One casino got caught many years ago, for obvious reasons, of putting caffeine in their ice cubes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's creative. I'll give them
Yeah,
that. That's creative.
and you know, people feel energized and they're awake all night. More gambling money, you know.
Right. Yeah.
So but it's our world, but also the great news to all of this. The antidote to it is yourself. Go inward. Understand this. Understand what makes you tick. Don't listen to Joel's version of that law of attraction. Go figure out your own version of how that works for you. I'm the guy that I don't want to be the guru. I want you. I advocate for you finding your version of it. I'm big
By the
about
way,
that.
that's one reason why your relationship with me, our relationship together, has worked so well, because we never went at it with the idea that we had to have the same idea of how law of attraction worked.
Oh, of course not. Yeah,
That was never part of the conversation.
In fact, now we know it works because you believe it works.
Yeah. In fact, the astonishing thing was finding how much we agreed on.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was like, oh my God.
Yeah. There's so much that we agree on. It's really nuanced on the other side. What's different, you know, it's just, but you know, Mike Dooley, he, for a long time, I loved a lot of Mike Dooley's stuff. Well, he's taken a left turn on some stuff for me.
He certainly has. Yeah.
Yeah. And have no problem with that. That's working for him.
Sure.
But I can let go of Mike Dooley being one of my go-to people in law of attraction. Solid guy. I'm just not into whatever he's into now. I forgot what it was. It was very weird, in my opinion, but clearly not for him. And so it's this, you know, I'm 90% Abraham Hicks, as you know.
Oh, yeah.
I don't agree with everything they say, but I agree with, you know, it's just, I put all this together based on what works for me. And that's what we're shooting for. That's the bottom line. Bio-individuality in anything, but you can program all this. You know, life is incredibly simple. It's incredibly fun. I laugh every single day, even when things are, you know, and I have a normal life. I mean, crazy stuff happens. You know, I have to deal with, you know, I have an 18-year-old son. I mean, he shot himself in the leg earlier in the year. You know, that was fun. And, you know, he's fine, but he's like, there's always something, but my perspective keeps everything going that right direction. Yeah. And that's the bottom line for our audience. I love our audience. I love that when, you know, I get emails occasionally, you know, people say that was a great show, or Facebook comments, and it's fantastic, but I'm not intending this to be, this is my directive. You got to do it this way. This is what works for me, but I beg you to please figure it out yourself. Don't take my word for it.
If for no other reason, then you can teach us something that we haven't thought of yet.
Yes, I talk about my younger clients. I have some of my younger clients that get into law of attraction that teach me things still. You know, and it's like, oh wow, you know, because they have such a direct. I mean, I'm always fascinated. I'm very teachable. I like to remain teachable. I study a lot of stuff. We talked quantum theory last week. You know, I'm always into quantum theory, and I don't know what any of it means, but
that came through loud and clear last week, by the way. I just wanted to let you know.
Yeah, I don't know what it means, but I love studying it. It's like you know, but it's fantastic. But again, when you love your life and love what's going on, it's amazing what happens. But when you fall into these things, and the sad part is, most of these people don't even know they've fallen into this. That's the sad part. They really believe they're still fighting the good fight. And, you know, it's like, that's the part that's sad for me, because you have good intentions to start off, and then you get off track, and there's nobody really to say, hey, is this what you really want to be advocating for?
That was the reason why I brought the topic up in the first place, because the topic was what I was seeing on Gaia TV and people who are in the same circle that we're in, pushing stuff that I was scratching my head on, and asking myself, do I really want to pay attention to that? And it occurred to me that this is something that people could easily get sucked into. I know for a fact people who are sucked into it. And so the question in my mind was, how do you handle that? How do you deal with that? And I think we've identified it. Yeah. You handle it by going within. Yeah. You handle it by checking in and saying, okay, does that resonate or does it not resonate? If it resonates, go with it. If it doesn't resonate, move on.
I had mentioned, I don't know if it was our show or I do a couple other appearances every now and then on some various things. I got an email from somebody said they heard me on the radio, but they didn't hear me on the radio. And they said, she's very much into crystals.
Okay.
And you know my stance on crystals.
I do. Yes.
Okay. So and for those that don't know, I personally, they're rocks. They're rocks. They have rock ability. No.
Hey, we did it. We coined another word today. I love it.
Yeah. They have all the ability of any other rock. They don't do anything. They're rocks. Unless you believe they do something. That they can become. I've seen people that they are very powerful. So I got this email from this lady basically berating me with the science of crystals.
Okay.
And I told her, thank you for reaching out. You must have misunderstood me. I believe they work for you. I just personally have found no value in them, but I want you to keep doing what you're doing. Sounds like you're helping a lot of people. And I, she wrote back, she goes, but you must understand it works.
You must believe what I tell you to believe. What's wrong with you, Joel?
And I responded back and I go, my sole response was, her name was Marianne. I said, Marianne, comma, they're rocks. That was my answer.
I hear you.
Yeah. And anybody that does crystals, please don't email me. I do believe they work for people, but it's anything else. That's the concepts that we're talking about. Your beliefs become reality. And Joe Dispenza says, your personal reality, we all have a personal reality, personal reality. And that's it does work. I don't expect anyone to rush up and, I did exactly what you told me to do and I made, $100 million or whatever. I want you to figure out the part of this journey. To me, the point of life is you get to figure it out. That's the whole point. You're placed here. There's no instruction manual or plopped onto a planet. I was born into absolute craziness, absolute every angle, addiction, mental illness. I saw crazy stuff. And so certainly no instruction manual came for dealing with that,
Really, no.
And, so over the years, and then I was brought up into a religion that literally told me that if I masturbated, I'd be burning in hell. Clearly that didn't affect my 12 to 15-year-old years, but
I don't think so. No.
No. And so,
by the way, hell's gonna be a very crowded place. I'm just saying.
Well, I mean, I am not aware of any human that would pass that litmus test. At least
can't say no.
Yeah. So it's like, where did that come from? Where did that go? Nonetheless, I can't live in that environment where I'm told that any action that is biologically predisposed in my body is somehow going to burn me in hell. That's the most absurd reasoning that I've ever heard. But yet it exists. But I don't care because I no longer subscribe to that theory.
Right.
If someone else does that, that's their business. You want to, yell at your kid because he's going to burn in hell for that. I mean, I'll deal with him when he's all screwed up when he's 25. We'll talk. But at this mindset, this whole thing we're talking about is focusing and tuning into the energy of the positive, of what's right. If everybody started with, I ask a question. Most people, I'm at the gym and I've learned some people you don't ask how you're doing because they will tell me what's wrong. So I have a question for certain people. I go, hey, what is going great in your life today?
Ooh, how's that work?
Some people respond, they think, and they'll say something. Okay. Other people go, nothing.
Well, it's succinct.
And I'm like, okay. I said, well, rest in peace or whatever. And they'll look at you like, I said, well, I assume you died. I mean, there's nothing going right. You woke up, right? But again, there's just, it's all about that. And that's why I love living the way we're living through this. And, you and I have become very good friends through this. And, I know your energy. I want more energies like yours in my life. And that's and our audience. I love our audience, how they participate. And we have some really cool people in our audience. And so I just look at this as, this is a privilege to be able to do. And we don't do it for money. We do it because we love it. We do it because it's good for us. We do it because I'm energized by it. And hopefully along the way, one or two people are going, hey, that helped me out.
Yeah. Well, it's more than one or two. I think it's probably the vast majority of them. And I would make one tiny argument with what you said. I think energy is money. I don't worry too much about whether it's something I can go spend someplace. It's energy. Energy is money, and we build tons of it here.
Oh, yeah.
We build massive piles of
it everything's energy. So you're right. That's a great point. Energy is everything, and energy is money. Energy, love is energy. There's and again, your perspective of that energy and the frequency of that energy, that how you do it makes it work.
Thank goodness. Boy, does it make it work. It makes it great. It makes it fun. Makes it interesting.
Absolutely.
It makes it like I can hardly wait to do the next show with you next week. So
I can't wait.
All right. So it's a date, right?
Absolutely. Let's see. Next week. This is the 4th of July week, by the way. That's
that's
good.
right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So I once again have failed to make any plans for the 4th of July.
I tried to, but we haven't found it yet. So
yeah. So I'm gonna probably just go to the gym, and I don't know.
At 9 a.m.
Yeah, well, maybe earlier because
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean I have one of my gyms, a 24-hour gym, so.
Oh, so it could be 9 p.m.
I can go anytime. I go twice that day. You never know.
There you go. All right.
Yeah.
I love it. All right. Well, thank you much. Thank you to our podcast listeners everywhere. We'll see you all next time here on
Thanks
LOA
a lot.
Today.
See you
Goodbye,
later.
everybody.